Hi, today we're looking at creating a chain-driven sprocket. So start a new part, ordered modeling. I'm in Solid Edge 2022. And we're going to start by drawing a sketch on the front plane. I'm going to use the new tool so we can go straight into our circle command. I'm going to draw a circle, no defined value, and I'm going to do 3 lines giving me a tangent on the circle. This is going to give us our center positions of 2 of our cutouts for the chain-driven sprocket that we're gonna have on here. We don't necessarily need to do this reference, but this is the way that I've always done it, because if you're doing a profile, you would need this to be a reference. So we're going to go and create that first value, 12.7. We do 1/2 inch pitch chain. And then I'm also going to do a angle dimension between these 2 lines. So use Smart Dimension and the A key to allow us to go and create that angle dimension on there. That's then going to give us our size, which we can use as an offset value to go and create the size of our sprocket on there. So for this is just our first sketch. This is just our reference sketch that we're going to go and use on here. So what I'm now going to do, I'm just going to move this over to the left, and I'm going to go to my variables table. So if we're in ordered modeling, we can just right click and our variables table can come up. If we don't already use the structured view, change from our normal to structured view and expand our ref. We need to put our teeth size. So I'm going to start with a 24 to sprocket. And that is going to mean that our angle on there is going to be 360 degrees divided by our teeth value. Make sure we click on the actual teeth value, not the 24. Otherwise, that's not going to come through on there. So let's just try that again. And that's going to give us our angle that we've got on there. Our 12.7 is obviously our pitch that we can go and change. We go put pitch in there and put the value and go and link that back to there. So they're all user-defined options. So if I go into there and change that to 32, you're going to see our diameter on the left is going to go and change that back to 24. And that's going to go and change back down again. We can keep that open if we need to, but I'm going to close that just to make it a little bit easier. If I've got a second screen, we can drag that onto the second screen. You see that I'll go and resize as that goes onto the second screen, so you can leave that open if you need to. So next I'm going to do a revolve. So I'm going to do a revolve sketch. It doesn't matter which way we do the orientation on here. So I want the revolve to come up slightly bigger than that circle. That's going to be the depth of our cog. To make sure we don't do that, if we press and hold the shift key, which I forgot to do on this instance, that makes sure that all of your lines become horizontal vertical. If you do get this kind of error, just use a horizontal vertical. If you're on 2022, you can click on the line directly and choose the horizontal and vertical option on there. So sizing now, we can define the thickness of this on here. So I'm going to go 2.5 on this one. I'm going to go and link this, so I want to make this too big, 2 millimeters bigger than this. So I'm going to go and do that 2 mil on there, so that's linked that way. These are going to be circular items, so I need to specify these as a symmetric diameter. So we've got that one, let's go 20 on that one, and let's go and do it again to that one, and we'll go 30 on there. And we just need one last dimension to go and define this depth on here. We will need to define an axis of revolution. So we just click on the y-axis coordinate system on there. We can then close and change that to 360 on there. Okay, so those are those sizes. Just pause that there if you need to catch up with that. If you do need to go make a change, if we haven't done anything, so that should have been 20, I forgot to input that. That's a great thing about this, the preview finish we get on the Solid Edge. We can go and rename these however we want. So that's going to be my main revolve or main revolution. Sorry about my spelling. Okay, so if we now just double check, whenever we're doing stuff like this, double check by going back to the variables table and make sure that the changes work properly. So as we go and make this change, make sure our revolve changes with it on there. If it doesn't update straight away, you can force an update, the update all button on there. So if I do 24, and that's going to update nicely on there. Okay, so now we've done that, we're going to go and save this. So depending on what we've got set up, we can save this as either chain driven gear, or if you've got your data management set up, as you can see I have, I'm just using the next default number. So the next thing we're going to have a look at, so we've got a few different ways we can do the gears on here. So the most simple way is to do a cutout, just do a basic circular cutout. So our rollers are going to be 9mm on here, so I'm going to do a circular cutout 9mm, and I'm going to go and just place that on the end of that line. I'm going to cut through on there. I'm going to add a couple of rounds. Obviously, we know that this isn't going to be great if we do this, so if we do about 4mm on there, that's going to be no good when we start to get to larger sizes on there. So we can see how this is going to end up not producing what we want. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to leave that cut out, but then I'm going to go and create it a different kind of way. So this time I'm going to do a cutout on the same face as we chose last time. Okay, and then what I'm going to do on here, I'm going to do another circle. So again, this is one way. I'm going to go through a few different ways on here. I'm going to create a circle, and then I'm going to do a arc by center. I'm going to hover over that circle and press C. That will start at the center point of there, and then I'm going to either click on the end point or click on that line and press E, and that will start on the end point on there, and that will allow us to go and create that circle. If it does start to go the wrong way, you tend to have to click it, and then you can decide which way that's going to go. So I'm actually just going to go and recreate that. It might be a little bit easier. So arc by center point, click on there, C, click on there, E, and then go and create that. If it does go the wrong way, if you go and pop down a size such as 60 and then tab, you can actually just go and move the mouse the direction that you want that to go. Okay, so next we're going to do a symmetric offset option in the drop down on that. We need to have 9mm width and a arc offset end. Choose OK, click on there, and that will go and create that arc offset option. Again, we are doing this in a cutout, so we need to make sure we've got the appropriate items that are referenced, so that circle needs to be referenced. And then on this one, I'm going to use Smart Dimension and press A to just dimension that up so it's fully defined on there. We can then close that sketch, cut out on there. We can then go and add actually I'm going to add the round afterwards. We can then use the mirror command to go and mirror that cutout using the XY plane in my instance. So we end up creating that mirror up there. And then we can do a round to these two edges. So on these, just going to stick with a small 1mm round on there. And that has got our profile looking okay on there, nice and smooth once we look at that. And then we can do a pattern. So we can choose the features we want to pan. So I want to do cutout, mirror, round, etc. Select the face. Okay, so for the pattern, choose a center, choose a item that we're patterning, choose direction, and then we'll go and control the spacing via the variable table later. So if we go to our variables and go and find our pattern, and that can equal teeth on there. Don't need any exclamation marks or anything weird, just put teeth in there. So I know some other people might be used to having to do something else a bit more complex on there. And that's got our rough kind of shape that we want on there. But what I'm going to do, I want to go back to my main revolution. So I'm going to do my go-to. I've set F4 as go-to. So if you haven't done that, definitely a nice little shortcut, saves a little bit of time trying to find that go-to command on there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go and do a am I do a round or a chamfer? Let's do a chamfer on here. And we're going to do a chamfer command. We're going to use a angle and a setback. I want to select this face, accept, select this face, and we'll choose setback of 0.6 and an angle of 75. We can then accept. If we right click to finish, but stay in the command, it will remember the settings. So we've only got to click on the 2 new edges, and that will go and do the same. Be very careful to right click between those. Okay, and then we've got both of those chamfers on there, nicely ready to go. What we ideally want to go and link those together. So if we go back to our variable table, go and find these 2 chamfers, we can go and make sure that the value of that is equal to the value of that one, and just enter. And then the same in the bottom one, we're going to make sure that is equal to that one, and then enter. Okay, we can close that, and then we can do a go to back on there, and we've got our shape back on there. So next, if we go to variables and we go and check if we need to do a range, so this, I want this to be available in a range of 10 to 52. So I'm going to go into my variable rule editor, and we can go and limit the values here. So we're going to do minimum, maximum, greater than, less than, equal to, and then we're going to do 10 and 52, and click OK on there. So let's just do some checks on there. So I'm just going to go, let's go up to 40. Make sure I actually change the right thing. So, sorry, let's change that to 40. That works, seems okay. Let's go up to 52. Let's go down to 24. Let's go down towards the low end and see if we're going to get any issues with the way this has been created on there. So let's go 14. Okay, and this is where we start to get the problems. So if I go down to 13, we're going to be okay. 12, okay. 11, fingers crossed. Actually, we're not too bad on that one. So that one does work, okay. But the profile probably isn't exactly how we would want it. The problem is that when that gear comes out, because we've got an exact profile here. Okay, so you can see, so when that comes out, once it wears, once the pins wear, and we end up with a little bit of play, it's going to end up catching that face. So there are other kind of ways that we can do this. So what I'm going to have a look at is doing it a slightly different way. So if we haven't got data management set up, we'll have to just do a normal save as, but I'm just going to do a revision on here, and I'm just going to create a new revision of that part, assuming that I've saved it and it's up to date. Okay, so on that part now, I'm going to go back and go remove the cutout, the mirror, and the round. I want to leave the pattern because we can just go and redefine the items for the pattern, because the pattern's already got the intelligence built in. So I'm going to go back to the cutout, and I'm going to F4 or go to get back to there. So let's have a look at this cutout. We're going to add a little bit more complexity to this cutout now. Okay, so we're looking at the second way of creating this now. So I'm in the cutout, I've got rid of the pattern. We're going to change the way we do it slightly. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a line, because I want to just split this into a arc. So if we draw a line, if you press and hold the shift key, make sure the line is vertical. If you come off the shift key before you finish, it's not going to do vertical. So choose line command, press the shift key, finish the line, and then go to our trim command. I want to trim that, and then go and delete the line. We can trim all of them depending on which way you want. Notice the arc is still linked to the end of this line, our construction line. Next, we want to do a relationship on here. Smart dimension, press the A key, tap the A key, and then set that to 150. Want to make sure the start and end are horizontal to each other, so use our horizontal vertical command to go and link those up. Next, I'm going to go back to the line command. I'm going to find our 12.7 tangent line that we did earlier, and I'm going to go and pop a little perpendicular line off there, and then just dimension that up at 6 mm for now, and turn that into construction. Because we're not using that, that's just for reference. And now we're going to choose the line command, click on the end pointer here, start a straight line, then tap the A key to go and turn that into an arc. If the arc does go the wrong way, go back to the start point and start to go in the other direction. Okay, so I want to go and create an arc. I want to snap that to the outside edge of that main revolve on there. I'll do the same on the top. So start that straight, press the A key, and snap to that point on there. What I'm going to do to make sure those match, I'm going to do a horizontal vertical between the endpoints of each of those arcs. We could add a radial dimension, but I want to control the distance here from this one instead. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to choose the arc by center point. So the center point I want to start from is the center of that one. So hover over the arc and press C. That will go and start at the center point of there. And then I want to start this from the end point of this arc line on here. So if we hover over that line, find the end point, and then go down until we meet this line. You can always just press on this line, just click on that line, and that will go and finish that to that line on there. So we should end up with a little arc on there. Sometimes it's easier now to go and turn the design bodies off so we can clearly see what we're looking at. Again, this line needs to be reference. So if we turn that to construction, and if we go and pop a dimension on there, again, we want to do the angle option on there. And we can go and set that angle on there. Notice if we go and change that, so if we're just going to change up to 0.8, you'll see the line at the top is going to change as well because that horizontal vertical is keeping that. Because this arc, obviously that arc goes all the way around, so I want to do a line at the end of each of these, coming out, away, just to make sure that our cutout doesn't envelop back on itself. I turn the design body back on, and for each of those, just gonna get these fully constrained. So just gonna do a tangent to that edge on each of those. Let's make sure those two are equal. And let's pop a dim on one of those. I don't need to be long, but I'm just gonna go 5 mm on that. Okay, so what we need to do on this angle on here, you can see V904. We need to go to our variable table. When we're in Sketch, it's the bottom of the list. And we've got our TFA. We haven't already created our TFA. TFA is 360 divided by teeth divided by 12. And that is going to link to here. So that's going to equal TFA. We can type it, click whichever option we want. And we can see how that, so as we go and increase this value, so if I go 40 on there, we can see that TFA is going to change. As we go and take that down, that's going to go and shrink on there. So we get these different options on there. So if we make sure we set that back to the standard value, because that could cause other issues on there. Okay, set that back to how it was. Okay, so next we need to check that this works. So if we close the sketch, if we do get any options with disconnected elements, it normally means that there's something we haven't turned to construction on there. So you can hover over these and that will show you where those disconnected elements are. So it looks as though I haven't actually connected that to that. And I'm pretty sure one of these isn't being recognised either. Let's just make sure they're all good on that. Okay, when we close that, we'll get our first cutout. And before we put our pattern in, I'm just going to hide the ref. I'm just going to double check that this change is okay. So I'm going to go down to 24, make sure that rebuilds okay. Let's go up to 52. Let's go down to 10. And then go back to our 32. 24 was the original size that we worked with, so I'm going to go back to that size. So double check that we've still got our limit in our teeth. Yep. And then we're going to do a pattern again. So we're going to do pattern, but much simpler this time because we've only got this one feature to select, doing it this way. So if we do our pattern, we can make sure that our pattern option is on fast pattern. So if we don't know the options, choose the center point of that cutout, and then left click to confirm the direction. And then we can close the sketch. And then we can link our teeth to our pattern value on there. So we can have that equal the teeth variable, and then tick on there, and then come out of that. So if we go make some changes on here to double check this works okay. 32, let's go 52. Okay, let's go down to 10. And let's check a couple of odd numbers on there as well. And just check that the odd numbers work okay. Okay, happy with that. Okay, so next section we're going to have a look at creating some lightweight cutouts on these. Worth noting, sometimes some people might want to put rounds on there. Just be aware, as soon as if you put a round on those edges, you are going to really slow it down. So think about suppressing that if you are going to go and create a round on there. So if I do an F4 on there, and then go and add a round to that feature, for instance. Let's just see if that will do it to the entire feature. Let's go 0.4. And then if we go and add that into the pattern, you see at the moment, it's probably not going to be too bad. But if we go into the pattern and we go and add a round feature into there as well, every time we go and make a little change on here, it's going to take a little while longer to go and calculate that with the rounds on there. It's actually as bad as I thought on this one. And then finish on there. Sometimes the round might cause other kind of issues. So sometimes you might need to go into your pattern and go and change the pattern to the smart, but smart will make it take a lot longer to go and calculate. So if your pattern does go wrong, sometimes you end up with random ones that don't appear. Change that to the smart pattern. Fast pattern is for a simple flat pattern. Okay, so time for a little break. So if we save that, and then we'll come back and we'll go and pop the cutouts in there. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at creating some cutouts to create some lighter weight, to make this lighter weight. So for this, I'm going to do a cut on the face on there. So for this one, I'm going to do a start a circle from the center point from that. And I'll do another one from there. So for these, we need to kind of dimension these up. We could do this all sorts of different ways, but I'm going to dimension that to that solid 2mm. Could do symmetric offset, project with offset, or all sorts of other stuff, but just to keep it simple, dimension that to there, and we'll go 8mm from there. Okay, I'm then going to do do 2 lines coming from there to go and create a segment, I'm going to connect the line to the origin point. And the same with this one. I want to do a horizontal and vertical between, could do the midpoints of the lines actually, that'll probably work fine. And we can do a angle constraint between these lines. So smart dimension, A key, so the second line. Okay, don't seem to have connected this one up properly, so let's try that one again. Let's connect the center point with the line. There we go. Then we can go and trim these, so we can get rid of those. And we've got our segment. Again, check. Let's check. 45 degrees works fine. 90 works fine. Let's go all the way down to 12. Check that works. That's good. Okay, so I'm going to go back to 30 on that. So again, we can do this same kind of option on here. We can link our 360 to our teeth to get the appropriate angle that we need on here. Okay, so what we want to do on here, we want to kind of say how many sections we want. So on here, I'm going to do sections. Okay, so if I go and put 8 in there. Okay, and then this is going to go and link to this. So the angle that we need. So the angle, I'm just going to call it angle. Not going to bother calling it anything. Oh, let's call it cut angle actually, just so we know what that is. That's going to equal 360 divided by the amount of sections we've got. So we can put down our sections. And we can go and decide how many sections we want derived from the amount of teeth we've got. So for this, we're going to use a absolute formula. So for this, I've actually already written this formula. So I'll pop this in the comments so we don't have to go and type this in. So let me just bring this center full screen so we understand what this does. So on here we're specifying an absolute value of 4 if the teeth is less than 16, or 6 if it's more than 16 and less than 28. So it's 6 now because we're at 24. So if we go and change that teeth to more than 28, so if I go and change that to 30, you'll see that absolute value is then going to go and change to 8. If it's more than 40, it's going to become 12. And we can see that the angle should be adjusting automatically on here as well. So if I go to 50 on there, you'll see the angle has changed. And then our sections, we're going to use that to go and control the pattern option that we've got on there. Okay, so if we're less than 16, we're going to have 4 sections, or we have 6 if it's between 16 and 28, or we're going to have 8 if it's between 28 and 40, or we're going to have 12 if it's above 40 on there. You can use this, you can go and add as many options of these as you want. So if you've got whole centers that need to change depending on the size, and when it hits a certain size, bang, whole change is changed from 300 to 450, for instance, we can use this same option on here. If you do end up with gaps between before and after teeth, notice the one I'm going to do, there aren't any gaps, but it will automatically add a gap between gap in here. So it'll add that little space there. So if you do it in Notepad or Word or something, there's no need to go and put the gaps in. When you paste it, it will automatically go and add those gaps in because it recognizes that it's a variable on there. So let's close that and close that sketch. And then we're going to do a cutout on there. So just make sure that is through all or through next. And then finish. I'm going to do a round, and I'm going to choose just all these corners. I don't want to do the entire feature. So these might be a bit of a problem when we get to the 12, but we'll go and double check that works okay on there. Okay, so we need to pattern that now. So I changed that while I was in the sketch, so it didn't rebuild properly. So let's just go and check that works okay before we do our pattern. That looks okay. Let's go and check that goes okay when we go to 52. Keep an eye on these rounds, check that the rounds still work okay. Just double check that is right. Okay, so let's just go down to 16 and check that is a cut angle. Should be 90. Doesn't seem to be changing, so I'm just going to have a look and figure out why that isn't changing on there. Let's just save that and go back into that feature. Okay, I think I didn't link it, so let's go back into there. So that equals this cut angle. There we go, it's looking better. Okay, so let's pattern that now. So we're going to pattern that cutout, and we're going to select the rounds as well from the left. We're going to go on the same face, choose our center, choose a feature on the pattern itself, and then go direction. I'm going to do 4 because that's what we need for this instance, but we'll go and change this later on. Okay, so finish. So there we've got a bit of a oversight. Almost great to have a little mistake. So that angle obviously needs to be that value minus a certain value on there. So I'm going to go and pop that in brackets. Let's go and see what that looks like with -2. -4. Okay, let's go with let's try 10 on there, see what that looks like. Looks okay. Okay, let's check what that looks like with different teeth options. So let's go and put that sections into there. Equals sections. Okay, doesn't look too bad. And let's just do some checking on there, see how that looks with the different options. Let's go to 52. See how that rebuilds. Might look nicer if we do a parallel, so we might have to go and change that cutout sketch slightly. Let's go and change that back to 32. Okay. So I'm going to go and change that sketch. So I'm just going to pause the video, make that change, and then show you what I've done on that. Okay, so I'm in the cutout. So let's have a look what we're going to change on here. So for this, I want these two lines to be construction. And then really I want some offset lines coming from these. So I want a 3mm offset line from there and a 3mm offset line from there. And then we can go and trim these up. So we can go and trim that to that, that to that, that to that, and that to that. And then we can connect the endpoint of that line. So we can use that connect and connect that to the arc on there and do that for each of these endpoint options on there. So if we choose the end of a line, and link that to the arc at each point, we're then back to fully defined. We could go and change this to 3. We could have this controlled, so this would be quite useful. So I might just go into there, double click on that, and have that equal that one. So we've only got to do a single controlled option now. So if we go and make a change to this one, so if we drop that down to 2.5, you'll see that's going to affect both those at the same time. Okay, so now we can close the sketch. That -10 we added earlier, we can probably go and delete that. And we also need to go and correct our round as well. So that -10 is still doing something strange. So first I'm going to go and correct the round, go back to our edges. It's picked up that we've no longer got those edges, so let's go and redefine those edges. If you do click the wrong one, Control and click deselects that edge. Okay, and then go back to our variable table, and we need to get rid of that -10 value. That's what's causing this to still be angled on there. There we go, that's the shape that we want. Kind of reasonably happy with the thickness on those. Could possibly go and make those outside rounds bigger on there instead, but not too unhappy with that. So that's going to go and add more weight if we do that. I might go and do it though, so I'm going to go back to my round, and I'm just going to resize those two. Let's go 5. See what that looks like. No, let's go 3. That looks fine. And then we'll go back to our pattern. So if we've done the shortcut, we'll choose that F4, and we need to go and add that resize to the pattern as well. So back to our first step, add the resize, accept, and we're looking good. Okay, so next we need to do some testing. So we've got our part pretty much finished. Let's go to our variable table and test this down. We can pretty much guarantee that once we get down below 13, 14, these cutouts are going to end up causing a bit of a problem. So I'm just going to go and test the higher sizes first. So let's go and check that one. So check no failed features. Everything looks pretty good on that. Let's go down to 20. And rebuild again, no failed features. 16. I've got 4 segments, pretty good. Let's go down to 12. So the resize round has caused a bit of an issue on there. So that's not a huge problem. Let's go back to 15 and see how that goes on there. So what we need to think about now is when this teeth gets to a certain value, we need to go and suppress a feature. So we can find the options on these. If we right click on those, we can add a suppression variable on there. If we then expand that, we can then see that suppression variable option. So we can go and add that suppression variable. Okay, so what we're probably going to do, probably going to use this to actually suppress all the other features as well. So we'll probably do the cutout, the round, and the pattern. So we're going to use the same one. So we're going to use a if statement, and the option we're going to look for is teeth is less than or equal to, so let's go 15. We're going to tell that to suppress it or not. So we're just going to try that. Not sure whether 1 and 0 are the right way around. Let's go and copy that and press enter. So that was the right way around. That's good. Just double check less than or equal to 15. We're going to change that to 16. We should see that feature come back. And we've got the Resize Round back. So for that, really, we need to choose. We can go and add that same one into that cutout. So if we do go down to our 10mm option, you'll see that cutout's probably just gonna go and fail on there because the pattern on there. So again, we need to go and add these in here. So I'm going to go and add suppression variables to all of these three features. So I'm going to add suppression variable to each of those, and then we're going to go to our, so deselect that, go back to our variable table. I'm going to go and add our suppression variable in each of those. So that one's good. Let's go into the round and paste, and cut out. We're going to paste that into there as well. So there we go. Let's fix that. So now we're 11. Looks okay. 12. Looks okay. 13. And then 14. And 15. We should get our cutouts come back on there. Oh no, it's equal to, wasn't it? To 16, they'll come back as it unsuppresses those features. Okay, that's pretty good. So 17, we should see that change to 6 segments as well on that. Okay, quite happy with that. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. So thank you very much.